Back to the NBA. Klay Thompson's numbers down nearly across the board last season, prompting Steve Kerr to bring him off the bench for the first time since his rookie year. With Klay's future in question with the team, he suspiciously unfollowed the Warriors on social media. And we have people here that notice things like that. But Draymond Green doesn't seem concerned about his teammates' online activity.
I think it's hilarious. Just so y'all know, I laughed when I logged on here and Jackson's like, yo, so what about Klay? I'm like, what? Like, what happened? It's like, oh, he unfollowed the Warriors. I think that's comical. I know you all be wanting like somebody's feelings to be hurt or something. It ain't that, ain't never gonna be that. That's hilarious.
Okay, sometimes I feel embarrassed that I have to report certain things, but here's where we are. And I could say this, Wendy, with Instagram, you could always mute someone, right? So if you don't want to see their feed, you don't want to, but you clearly want to make it public when you unfollow them. So do you think this is something or nothing?
Okay, it is something because it's a contract negotiation. Yes. It doesn't mean that he is no longer wants to be with the Warriors. It doesn't mean that he'll never re-sign with them. It just means that we are now at the serious stage. Now, here's what I want to tell everybody. And this rule is brand new. I'm still learning this rule and comprehending it. Once the finals ends, which could be tonight, teams are allowed to negotiate and come to terms with their own free agents. So one of the things we always saw in the past, real quick, July 1st would hit and all of a sudden all these contracts would get done. And you'd be like, well, how'd they get done in 5 minutes? Because this was going on. Now they can get negotiated and done. So I would expect if the finals end tonight, in the next 2 or 3 days, we're going to see a bunch of people come to contract terms. Pascal Siakam, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's staying in with the Pacers. Tyrese Maxey, I don't think he's going anywhere. He'll come to terms with the 76ers. There's a couple other obvious deals. But there's a couple that we're going to watch. Klay Thompson will be in that spot. If he doesn't come to terms with the Warriors, with the exclusive negotiating here, it could mean that he wants to look at someplace else. And that's what this is. And I want to say this. It's not just about the actual dollars. It's also about the respect that Klay wants to be paid. Now, we just saw those numbers. 18 points a game, 39% from three-point range. That's a valuable player. Yes, that player is a $20 million player in today's NBA. Under certain circumstances, maybe even more. But the thing with Klay won't just necessarily be the money. It will also be the years. How many years would you be willing to give? Yep. And the role. They've got young players who play his position. Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody. Klay got benched at the end of some games last year. What's his role going to be? All of those things come into play.
And what role is he comfortable playing right now in his career?
Absolutely. So what I would say is, just because he did this doesn't mean that he's leaving, but it does mean that we're on brass tacks, and it's going to get a little bit rocky, I think.
Klay Thompson's a future Hall of Famer. He's
Yes.
a four-time NBA champ. He's one of the greatest shooters the game has ever seen.
Yes.
And his definition of a down year, 39% shooting from three-point range. 90+% of the league would pray to be able to do that. This man spent 9 of his first 10 years in the NBA shooting better than 40% from three-point range. So understand that the price of greatness is what we're witnessing right now. Because when you're that great of a shooter as he was, the slightest dissipation is noticeable. Because you simply aren't what you used to be, even though you're still better than most. Instead of people embracing the concept that you're better than most, instead they're saying you're not what you used to be. So that's the frustration that Klay has dealt with. Let's not also forget that even though Golden State paid him when he was injured, if you recall years ago, we cost him a Supermax deal. Not me, because I voted for him, but Kemba Walker got third team All-NBA. And he was kept off of the All-NBA team. That cost Klay Thompson over $30 million. I don't blame Klay Thompson. He never spoke to the media again after that. They cost him $30 million. The media cost him $30 million because they didn't vote him onto an All-NBA team. So we got to remember that. Now we got to also be fair when we're looking at him now. 34 years of age, came off the bench for the first time in his career, averaged 19.8 points on 42.8% shooting on three-pointers in his 14 games as a reserve. Let's not forget that. Also ranked second on the team in points per game after the All-Star break, shooting 45% from the field, 41.2% on three-pointers. So his numbers, while it's under 40, it wasn't under 40 the second half of the season after All-Star break. So let's remember that. These are all arguments that favor Klay Thompson. Here's the problem. the way he and Steph used to flow off of one another with a measure of unparalleled consistency was not what occurred last year. It was up one game, down another, up one game, down another. If I'm Klay Thompson and he's watching, I'm thinking about New York because you need a shooter. I'm thinking about Philly because you got Embiid and Maxey, and imagine what you would do there. Those are two teams that really, really, really come to my mind. There could be others, but definitely those.
You think New York or Philly would want him?
Well, I think New York should. Make no mistake about it. I think Philly should want him if Embiid is healthy. If Embiid is not healthy and it's him and Maxey, that's a different argument. But the New York Knicks, with the way they play defense and with the way that Tom Thibodeau coaches them, I think to have a sniper, a sharpshooter out there that can shoot like that, that's a huge, huge plus. But this is the other point that I wanted to make about Golden State, because I'm going to come to Joe Lacob's defense here. I'm looking at these numbers, guys. Him and his ownership group have spent $677 million in penalties and have been in the tax 4 out of the past 6 seasons. The man has spent the money. He's made the investment, and it's been in those players. So let me be very clear to everybody out there. The Golden State Warriors ownership doesn't owe Klay or anybody else anything. You appreciate what they've done, but they didn't play for free. And the 2 years, basically, that Klay was out, they paid him those years, too. Mm-hmm. And so we have to remember that and understand that moving forward. I hope it works out, but I don't see it because Klay Thompson is worth more than 2 years and $60 million. Yes. Okay. Klay Thompson is worth at least double that, triple that as far as I'm concerned. But it's got to be under the right situation. And the roster as presently constructed is no longer the ideal situation for Klay Thompson.
2 questions before we go to break. Is he still a starter?
Yes.
Yes.
And what do you think of Philly and New York, or do you think there's a better fit?
I mean, I think it would depend. I mean, I like Paul George as a fit better on Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And the one question
Philadelphia or New York?
I like Paul George a better fit on Philly.
Okay. Not New York?
Not as much.
Yeah, because he dribbles.
Yes.
And Klay catches and shoots. So I think New York would be better for Klay. Paul
George. The one question I would have for the Knicks, and I hear that, but like the defensive aspect for how Tibbs also likes to defend. But you have gaps, right? Between Josh
and Klay's not a slouchy defender. He isn't what he used to be.
Where are you
well, the Knicks couldn't make that deal unless it was a sign and trade, or unless they cleared out, like said goodbye to OG Anunoby and cut Bojan Bogdanovic. You passed by Orlando. Orlando's fascinating.
Yeah, I jumped on Orlando.
I'm not sure that Klay wants to go to Orlando, but Orlando cannot score out of the backcourt. He would have an instantaneous giant role. He'd take as many shots as he could get, and they have huge money, and they've got young pieces, and they finished 5th in the East last year.
Yeah.
Well, in a perfect world, Klay would love to be in Los Angeles. We all know that. I'm talking about the Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine?
Again, no space.
There's no space. They can't do it. But that's where he'd love to be. But I'd say learn to like New York.
All right.
Learn to like New York.